Michael Licata has been a driving force in the entertainment industry for over 30 years. As a manager, agent, drummer, producer, and musical director, he's been behind multi-million-dollar projects for icons like Chris Brown, Blues Traveler, Rihanna, and more. With 16 platinum and gold records, Grammy-winning clients, and sold-out shows like Mac Goss at the London Palladium, Michael's impact spans music, TV, and live entertainment. From the stage to the studio, his legacy defines excellence.
Hi, I'm Ian Sacamando, and I'm a senior at Kenmore East High School, and I'm here with Mike to ask him a couple questions. Right. So,
Let it go. I'm ready.
All right. So, well, I got to say, because I'm a drummer, I've been playing for 11 years, and I love Phil Rudd just as much as I love Neil Peart.
Right.
AC/DC was my first love, just the same as it was yours, which I find incredible, by the way.
Yeah.
He's spreading the word. He's spreading the good word about Phil Rudd. So what drew you to Rudd's style of playing versus someone like, I don't know, Neil Peart? Let's pick on Rush a little bit here.
Sure. I think what brought me to Phil Rudd and AC/DC is, first of all, I've seen AC/DC like, I have no life, like 25 times. They're just awesome. And I saw them, I'm this old, I saw them with Bon Scott 3 or 4 times. My mom, he was the original lead singer. My mom first started letting me go to concerts, and I saw them at the Shays opening for a band called UFO, and it was a snowstorm. So nobody showed up. I was in the second row on the floor at the Shays with Bon Scott, and there was probably 75 people there. It was unreal.
Most Buffalo gig, right?
Yeah,
in the middle
right.
Of a snowstorm. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like an origin story. Okay.
But the thing that fascinated me, even at an early age with Phil Rudd, is that he took the simplest beats, but he made it just groove. You can't listen to AC, like put on Highway to Hell, and you can't just, my son in his high chair, when he was 2 years old, I would put on Highway to Hell to try to teach him correctly at 2, Bohemian Rhapsody, the headbang part after Galileo, and then he slammed it, but the same with Highway to Hell. And I've heard bands play AC/DC music. I've seen AC/DC tribute bands, and something as simple, Highway to Hell, cut, they don't do it right. So there's a magic to being able to play that simple and make it groove. I heard Whole Lotta Rosie when I was 14 years old, and I was like, what a freight train that band, that rhythm section is. It's simple, but that's what, so the answer, the long-winded answer is that this guy knows how to sit in the pocket. And when they lost Phil Rudd and they got Simon Wright, who's a friend of mine, he's great, and they brought Chris Slade in, who's a friend of mine.
Great guy.
Great guy. And then Phil came back. Simon and Chris had their own sound, and it's just 2 and 4.
Yep.
But when Phil came back, it just fell back into what they sound like to me. So that's the answer. I was impressed by how he could swing a band playing that simply.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think their sound changes too when you listen to like 74 Jailbreak or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different drummer. And it's just like, what?
Did you know that 74 Jailbreak's a different drummer?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a guy named Tony Carenti.
I think he's like Australian, Italian or something.
And he owns a pizzeria right now. We're having AC/DC history, so I'm really sorry if we're boring you, but you're right, dude. You're right. And even High Voltage. Phil Rudd didn't come in until the next album, even those names on the album covers. You're right. It's a different feel.
It's crazy. With
He knows what he's talking
Soul
about.
Stripper and like
Soul
the claves.
You really got a hold on me? Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's crazy.
Sorry, we're having boy time. Next question.
All right. Well, in no particular order here. What is the hardest experience you had to deal with, like on stage? I mean, nightmare gig, serious injury. How'd you get through it? And what advice do you have for aspiring young musicians?
I was told that you were going to ask that question. So I thought about it all night. I have a list. I've had so many scary situations on stage that I didn't want to screw this up, so I wrote this down for you. And I guess the lesson any aspiring drummers or musicians will take from this is make sure when you're at sound check, because nobody's going to care the way that you care, when you're at sound check, make sure that everything is done to your satisfaction, because the production people, no one's going to care like you, because when the crowd comes in, you're on your own. And if something goes wrong, it's your own fault because you didn't fix it. I have my top 5 here of things that made me want to kill myself on stage. Number 1 actually wasn't, I was sick. I was playing in Elmira at a place called Trifosos with Joe Peachy. I had 102-degree fever, and I had a bucket next to me. And the point of this is, the show must go on. You got 800 people there, and they want to dance and drink, and so no one's going to care. So I was playing, throwing up in a bucket between songs, thinking I was going to just pass out.
Oh
and
my gosh.
it was terrible. So take your Pepto-Bismol. It's number 1. So the remaining 4, I was playing with a group. We were on television in Montreal, and I'll try to whip through these fast because you have things to do. I was on stage on a telethon in Montreal with the band, and it was live. So when it's live, so the drum set was rickety. There's no sound check, and the drum seat was really, and I like to move around when I play. I need an anchored down drum seat. Live television, and we're playing in the middle of the medley, and the legs gave out on the chair, and I fell backwards off the drum riser. And I'm playing live TV, and I'm laying there on the ground, and I just tried to reach my hand up and hit a beat on the floor tom. And we were playing Late in the Evening by Paul Simon. So it's this samba, which is heavily percussive, the Steve Gadd beat, and the bottom is gone. All you can see on the TV is an arm come up from the ground, and I'm hitting the quarter notes on the floor tom just to try to give them something to samba to. Then I made my way back. It was horrible. That was number 1. Point is, if I had time to make sure they didn't give me a seat that was just something bought from Kmart, I would have been better off. Number 2, I was playing with a pop singer named Jermaine Stewart. We were in Phoenix at a place called the Celebrity Theater. And it was like, we used to have a place here called Melody Fair. It was in the Round, okay? Excuse me. And the stage was the same way. Now, we were following sequencers and a click track. Now, for a drummer, what that means is you're wearing, nowadays, you wear in-ear monitors.
Yep.
So you're the only one that can hear the click, okay? Back in the day, we didn't have click track, and then you can't have a click coming through the monitors because everyone will hear. So I would follow like a tambourine pattern, or like I programmed like a cowbell, and that's what I would lock into through the monitors. You'd hear clunk, clunk, clunk. The whole band is locked into that sequence. If I go off of that, we're dead. So we're on stage at the Celebrity Theater. This is nightmare number 3. And we go to sound check. We're sitting on the stage in the Round, and I can hear the monitors great, and I hear the click. Come the nighttime, they welcome us to the stage. It's like 3,000 people. Kids are screaming. Lights go down. I sit down. We start to play the song, and I hear the click, and I'm comfortable. All of a sudden, the stage starts to move. It starts to move. So the monitors were on the lip, 4 corners on the lip of the stage. Okay? You got this so far?
Yeah.
The inside of the stage starts to move, but not the lip, not the outside. So the monitors, I'm playing and I'm focusing on that click track, and the stage starts to move, and I'm like, where are we going? Please, no. So I'm getting further and further away from the click. This is why you have to have great time as a drummer. I'm not saying I have great time, but you know what I'm saying. So the stage starts to move, and the click is going away, and it's fading off. And I felt like I was in the Titanic trying to get to a lifeboat, because if I get off this click, I'm playing, in the middle of the beat while the rest of the band, it'd be a train wreck.
Yeah.
So I'm getting further and further away from the click, and then there's the other monitors. We're getting towards it, and I'm like, please, God, move this thing quicker. So the stage would slowly move, and I'm getting further away from my life vest.
Yeah.
And then we're getting closer to the other life vest. So there was a 2-second spot where it was dead. There was no sound, no nothing. They didn't tell me the stage was going to move. I didn't know this. So we're getting away, silence, and then I hear off in the distance, kick, kick, kick. Oh, there it is. But when you're sitting there smashing, all you can hear are cymbals and drums, and so That was 90 of the worst minutes of my life because I'm click, so that was terrible.
That's crazy.
That was horror story number 3.
Moving
The next
stage.
one, I'm working with Ricky Martin, who's a pop singer. If you go to YouTube, you can see what I'm talking about. We did a video called Shake Your Bon Bon, and it was filmed in front of like 18,000 people at the Blockbuster Pavilion in Devore. This was right after La Vida Loca. He was hotter than hot. And we filmed this video. 18,000 kids watched us shoot for like 7 hours, the same song over and over and over. And you'll see in the video, it's like there used to be a TV show called the Hollywood Squares, and they'd put people in different squares. So they built this monster stage, monster setup, and I was in the bottom square, in the middle, okay? And they had monitors right behind me. So we did our sound check, and my box was loud because I'm sequestered in my box, and all you can hear again are drums and cymbals. But I could hear my monitor, and I was okay. I was like, all right, I'll deal with it. Again, the night comes. 18,000 screaming, crazy Ricky Martin fans, and lights go down. We sit down, we get ready to play, and I hear the director or somebody scream through a bullhorn, okay, seal them in. And I had no one to talk to. There was no walkie-talkies. And then there's a carpenter behind me with a hammer, and he's nailing us into the boxes.
Oh man. Say goodbye.
Monitors on the other side of the wall. I can't now hear anything, and I'm getting a little panicky because there's like a 20-foot drop in front of my kick drum. If I would have jumped on that bass drum and they didn't, the drums would have just gone over into the pit, and I had nowhere to go. And the song starts, I can't look at the bass player, all I can see is Ricky. There was a long catwalk. You'll see it if you look on the video.
Wow.
And he's out there, and I hear the click, 1, 2, 3, 4, from a distance, and then the song starts, and then I start to play. I had like this borderline panic attack. I couldn't hear anything except cymbals. I couldn't get out of there because I'm nailed in like it's a coffin. So that was 8 hours of pure fun.
Wow.
And then lastly, so with Femmes of Rock, great band in Vegas. I was playing with for a while. We were hired for a private corporate event, and for Local 210, they had their yearly meeting, and they rented out like 3 big ballrooms in Vegas, and they had like 3,000 Teamsters there. If these stories are too long, just check. But this story was the worst.
Oh man.
So they had us come in, Femmes of Rock, and they wanted us to do this AC/DC medley, which is, great.
He's the guy.
And they had us do it at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's kind of like a shot of caffeine to get the 3,000 people prepared because they're going to be bored for the next 8 hours listening to motivational speakers. So 3,000 people from around the country, Local 210. For some reason, they wanted to feature me. They saw the promo reel for Femmes of Rock, and yet Nina told me you have to do a drum solo. So she put this great medley together, and then it ended with Thunderstruck, okay?
Yeah,
so she's out there on the electric violin. She's awesome. And she's playing the intro. And in sound check, we didn't go through it. They put the drum. So it was Jimmy Hoffa Jr. was the president of Local 210 when we did this, I don't know, could have been 8 years ago. And he wanted to see the drummer do his thing. So Thunderstruck, so we go to sound check. We play it. Everything is great in this big place. So fast forward, 8 o'clock in the morning. They're all loaded in there. We're doing the AC/DC medley. We're killing it. And they didn't tell me that they put hydraulics underneath the drum, the riser, okay? So I start doing, so she's vamping on the intro to Thunderstruck.
Yep.
And then I just did like the 60-second kind of croupa, just doing this tom thing, and all of a sudden, the riser starts going up. Now, I'm having nightmares of Montreal falling off the riser again, okay? And they put a 2x4 to protect me from falling backward. They nailed it into the ground, but it started going up and nobody told me. And we didn't do this during sound check. So I'm going up. Now we're 15, 20 feet up in the air. Bombs go off, and there's fire. It's like the inside of Kiss Alive 2, if
Wow.
you see Peter Criss. Now, Hoffa Jr., I didn't know this, he walks out underneath the drum riser in a cloud of smoke while I'm having a panic attack up there going, if I fall, I die. So, it was hate to sound like a baby, but bombs, smoke, I can't see, and I can't even see the audience because I'm so high in the ground like Peter Criss on Kiss Alive, I can't even see the crowd. I could see clouds, and I could see God, who's like, you're almost here, and I was, please, take me down. So I was up there for probably 60 seconds, not knowing I was going to be up there.
Black Diamond moment, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So
That is
the
absolutely
point of
insane.
the whole story is make sure you're aware of what they're going to do to you so it doesn't change. So monitors aren't going off into the deep end and bombs aren't going off. And so how's that for an answer?
That's a hell of an answer.
Yes. Yeah.
Right,
I was
well-
up all night putting those together.
Oh, man, I bet.
What else we got?
Right, well, speaking of gigging, I know we've talked about a lot of live shows, things like that. What's your routine? Like, run us through it. You're playing a gig. I've heard you played, am I correct saying you played Red Rocks before? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and you go Las Vegas, you get Buffalo, all over. Played with Drake, played with Rihanna. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, what do you do?
I didn't play with her. I
Play with
directed
her.
a video for her and Chris Brown.
Oh, no big deal. Yeah.
It's about just,
Okay.
no.
No? Okay. All right.
One of the coolest things was Red Rocks in Denver because I had the DVD to U2 Live at Red Rocks and Dave Matthews Live at Red Rocks. It's just a famous place.
Yeah.
And I played there with Jermaine Stewart. And in Universal Amphitheater, it's not there anymore, that was huge for me because I can never get out of my brain. I never believe the hype or the backslapping or the platinum records. It's just, I'm really so grounded that I like beat myself up. I'm never happy enough with what I do. And I don't, so I never forget, I walked out on stage on Red Rocks and it was such a legendary place. I used to manage, I've done management of bands before. I used to manage Blues Traveler, John Popper, Grammy winners. Yeah, they're cool. So a couple years ago, I was there with them, and it was different standing on the side of the stage watching them play. But when you're on that stage performing, it was like this rapid fire pictures in my brain, honest to God, of lights go down, and in Red Rock, here's the stage, and the seats are cut into the rocks. The road is like at the top, at the very top. And I walked out there with Jermaine, and in my mind, I'm like, the Beatles played here. I'm from Tonawanda. I went to Hoover. I went to Kenmore East. I don't deserve this. What am I doing here? And we started to play, and there's nothing cooler than being on stage, and I looked this way, and the sides of the stage were open, and you could see the city of Denver right there. And that knocked me out. Denver knocked me out, and I was like, I am not worthy. And it was the same at the Universal Amphitheater. I went out with Jermaine, and you know the comedian Louis Anderson?
Yeah.
Right, I think he just passed away. He was standing on the side of the stage, the lights go down, and I see Janet Jackson's in the third row. Jody Watley was right there. Wow. Pee Wee Herman was there. Wow. And Larry Anderson was standing right here. I'll never forget this. We all run out, lights come down, and he gives me a high five, and I'm like, I went to Hoover. So, what am I doing here?
Hoover won.
Yeah. So those. I'm trying to think. What any other bands that? Oh, I know what knocked me out. There's a group called Rhino Bucket, and I love these guys. They're kind of like very much like early AC/DC.
Yes.
And I played with them for about 6 months, and my very first show with them was at excuse me, the Sweden Rock Festival. This was like 2011. And I'll never forget this. We were on a bill. We opened the show, like 22,000 people there. And it was us, The Cult, Judas Priest, Whitesnake, and Ozzy.
Wow.
And I'm on stage, and I walk out again, and it was the exact same thing. I walk out, and they're one of my favorite bands. And it's a long story on how I got into this band. It was crazy. I won't bore you with it. But I joined the band. 7 days later, I'm on stage at Sweden Rock. David Coverdale's right there watching us. And I'm playing with one of my favorite bands. And again, I just have this mental thing where I'm like, I'm from Kenmore East. what am I doing here? If David Coverdale knows that I'm not really that good of a drummer, or I'm not Vinny Appice, or I'm not one of these stud rock stars, I'm not Tommy Aldridge from Whitesnake, they're going to think I'm a forest because all I do is play 2 and 4. But again, my favorite drummers, Jeff Porcaro, Phil Rudd. You know, I know what I'm good at, and it's just driving a train. I couldn't play with Frank Zappa. It's just not, you know, I respect it, I love it.
Yeah.
It's just not how I earned a living. So,
Yeah.
so.
Well, hey, let's talk about that. So Ken Maurice, you're from Hoover. You know, you're grown up here. What like about this place is do you think added to your style? Do you think anything about living here? What say you grew up in, I don't know, like Chicago or
Right.
in Denver? I mean,
Excuse me.
what about here? Do you think it adds anything at all? Do you think it's just
No,
luck?
it does. I mean, the school system, and I said this before when I was talking to Dick, the school system is what formed me. You know, I've heard rumors that recently they want to cut, you don't have to comment on this because I don't want you to get in trouble, but I don't care. I heard they want to cut the jazz band at some of the high schools here. That would be terrible.
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 If anybody watching has the power to fund it or not fund it, fund it. Because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now or what I've done my entire life if I didn't have, going back to Mrs. Gerace at Edison and my amazing teachers at Hoover and Mr. Bill Mosier and Mr. Dolden at Kenmore East and Mr. Hathaway, John Hathaway. These guys were all, we went to Alfred and finished first in All-State with the jazz band. And it gave us the confidence and the experience and just the wherewithal to be able to move forward. I couldn't have done any of this without that. So if you think you're going to cut the funding to save a couple dollars, there's 30, 40, 50 kids that I grew up with that will tell you otherwise. So
Yep.
I think it stinks. So the original question before I got all Joe Pesci on that camera was how influential was it? It was very influential. I wouldn't be doing anything unless I had that confidence from those teachers who were all great, all great. And then I studied for a quick second after high school with Mr. John Rowland, who was the head percussionist of the Buffalo Philharmonic. He was awesome, and that kind of took me to another level. Then I studied with Louis Marino, who was a great local jazz drummer. That took it to another level. And then from there, I left town and just went on the road. So,
Wow.
yeah.
There you go. I mean, that's great to hear, and I'm
Yeah.
glad. I mean, and you're definitely not the only one. I mean, that jazz band is so important, and it's drum set experience specifically. It's
Yeah.
not just
It's
you're
not
playing
snare
xylophone,
drum,
you're
and it's
playing snare
not
drum.
marching drum. Right.
Specifically drum. It's the only thing in the school that really you're playing the drum set like that.
Yeah,
Besides
yeah.
a few select wind ensemble pieces, that,
Right.
if you have a cool band director.
Yeah. You're a senior now?
Yes.
What do you want to do next year?
I'm going to University of Toronto. I'm officially committed.
Oh, good.
And,
how's the music department up there?
It's very good. I'm at their Scarborough campus, so it's a little bit smaller. It's got more like a medium college feel. And yeah, it's like a music minor is what I'm looking at right now with a psycholinguistics major.
Wow.
But
I was going to do a psycholinguistics major, but I stayed with music, so. Sorry, keep going.
no, it's all right. I mean, I'm really honestly, like, I felt very unsure. I mean, there were times where I wanted to go pro. There's times where I want to be a music teacher. I'm figuring myself out, and,
But see, you'll figure it
Yeah.
out, though. You'll go there, you'll go to school, and your minor could turn into your major. I mean, it's,
Definitely.
We were just talking about how we both just read the Geddy Lee book from Rush.
such a great book.
Such a great book. And, his path is very much like what I just said, other than he turned into Rush, Geddy Lee, and
Yep.
I'm not. But, his career was the exact same thing of what I went through, what you're going through. He didn't really know until he, he met Alex Lifeson, and, you
Yep.
should stalk him when you get to Toronto. Find where he lives.
Oh my God.
So you don't know. You can end up on tour with somebody in 2 years if you meet the right person.
Definitely.
Linguistics are out the window.
Yeah,
So-
really, they are.
But
Well, okay, so I guess another question that I have as a drummer, to a drummer, what smaller details would you say define your style? Is there anything fellow drummers can listen for to tell that you're behind the kit on a song that's playing, on the radio or whatever?
let's see. It's interesting because I'd like to say that I don't have a style that you could zero in on. But on the other hand, I can tell you if Phil Rudd is playing.
Yes.
And I can tell you if Steve Gadd is playing. You know,
course.
he's just sits behind the beat, and it's the same with Phil Rudd. If you hear any records or anything with me, it's rarely on record, especially anything technical. I play in the studio or on record more like Jeff Porcaro, where it's just kind of under the radar and you're playing for the song. I'm not trying to hot dog it up. I mean, I've played shows in front of a lot of people, and I've purposely not used any toms, just to show you that I can do it. And I've played with a kick drum, a snare drum, and a hi-hat, and that's it. Because it's all about, for me, it's all been about pocket. And I mean, with Femmes of Rock, Nina put together this brilliant 11-minute Rush medley. And it was very, very, very challenging for me, because I play normally a rack tom, floor tom, snare. And I first heard it, and I'm like, no. And she said, you're going to learn this. And I said, no, I'm not. That's not my style. It's not what I do. And I don't have 47 tom-toms and 3 bass drums all around me. She's like, you can do this. And I went, I really can't. It's not what I do. So she slapped me. And then it took me about a month. And the way that I practice and learn material is I listen to it. I don't write out charts. I mean, sometimes I'll write out a chart, you know, and it looks like hieroglyphics inside of King Tut's tomb. Wouldn't be able to, nobody would be able to understand it, but in my ridiculous way, I know that, you know, there's a measure of 5 here, or there's this going on, only I can, but then I don't look at it again. I listen to it over and over and over, and I play until it's right, because I don't want to be dependent on the chart.
Yes.
Point of the story is, 11-minute Rush medley was brilliant. She did a great job cutting together like 8 songs. It was nuts. And we played it. We played it here at the Riviera a couple years ago, and Dick, when you guys opened, we played it that night. And I'll never forget, I asked a buddy of mine after it was over, I said, tell me, what did that sound like? You know, I was afraid for just it felt good to me. I mean, try to play the intro to The Spirit of the Radio when that's not your thing.
Yeah.
So, but I did it without stinking. And I said to my buddy, how did that go? And he said to me, and I'll never forget this, he goes, that's the first time I ever heard Rush groove. He goes, I could actually tap my foot to 11/8. And I was like, that was the ultimate compliment to me, knowing you can listen to Tom Sawyer and feel like you're at a club. Because I was just laying it down. I wasn't trying to be Neil Peart, you know, I just putting my own spin on it. So, you know, if you're going to hear me somewhere on the radio or something, you'll hear consistency. I don't know if you'll know it's really me, because I don't do this, but the song sounds great. Is that a good answer?
Yeah.
Okay,
Of
cool.
course. I mean, hey, look, like, that's a rare thing. I mean, I see all of these drummers. I'm playing in bars and clubs and stuff right now.
That's the worst.
And it's like, it's this culture, I think, right now that it's been created in the music scene, where you feel like you have to be like, this is everything I know.
Right.
Here you go.
Right. In 3 minutes.
In 3 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, I find myself telling myself I have to do this because I see other drummers doing that. I'm like, no, I'm
Right.
gonna play what I want to play. And it's like you're almost showing people that, you know, I don't have to tell you.
Yeah.
You wait and see.
Right,
Let me do my thing. You know?
And it's so smart that you're as young as you are and you already know this, because there are players I'll see in clubs 40, 50, 60 years old still hot dogging it up, and they're not playing for the song. The drummers that have no ego and they play for the song and they shine when it's their time to shine are the ones that'll work. I mean, look at guys like, I mean, people used to ask me back in the day, do you think Ringo's a good drummer? Do you think Charlie Watts is a good drummer?
Fantastic.
Exactly, they're fantastic. And there's other drummers who are the hot dogs that, they stink. I mean, Ringo, granted, my mom could have played drums for the Beatles, but songs like what Lennon and McCartney put together, Mom could have played drums because they were so good, but still,
yeah.
George Martin had an influence on Ringo. The intro to Come Together, it's like, you know, you hear that and you know that's come together. Mm-hmm. So many of his parts are amazing. And when I worked with him, I haven't told you guys this yet, I worked with Ringo for a hot second, and he was one of the nicest guys I ever met in my life. You stay humble, you stay normal, and he's a Beatle. And this guy, the director, we were working on, and he goes, don't talk to Ringo, told the whole band. Don't look at him, don't go, nothing. And as soon as we wrapped shooting for the day, I was like, when am I ever going to get this chance again to be around a Beatle? And I told the bass player, I go, hold the camera, I'm going into Ringo. And you're going to get in trouble. I mean, shut up, it's a Beatle. And soon it was over, that cut, that's a wrap. And I went, Ringo, I said, I've been a fan since I was little. I said, can we take a, sure, mate, sure, where's the camera? And I'm like, just smile. And then the guy was standing there, threw my arm around him, and if you see the picture, I'll email it to you. The director who yelled at me and told me to not go near Ringo, he gets his head in the camera. So you see me and Ringo, and Goofy, the director, is like, I'm like, what are you? Then he asked me for a copy of the picture. I'm like, you were ready to slap me 3 hours ago. But, you know, Ringo was, and Charlie Watts, the bands wouldn't have had that sound if it wasn't for their simple, genius parts.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I gotta say, it's one of the best concerts I've ever seen was Ringo Starr and his All-Stars.
I've never seen it. I've wanted to.
Oh my gosh, they're coming to Niagara Falls.
Are they?
In September. I got tickets.
Wow,
You
I
should
want to go.
Yeah.
I know I should. I'll come home. We'll go.
Yeah. Let's go.
All right.
Right.
I'm sure if I call him and say I'm bringing my friend Ian backstage, he'd go, who are you again?
Yeah.
All right. What else we got?
What else do we got? Well, let's
I
see
think
here.
Judy wants us to get the heck out of here.
Oh, I think I've asked all my questions.
Oh, hey.
Well, except for, yeah. Well, tell me more about Kenmore East. I mean, what favorite band memory? How about that?
Favorite band member?
Last question. Memory. Sorry. Yes.
Favorite band memory?
Yes. Favorite band memory. Of Kenmore
Oh,
East,
man.
yeah.
I'll tell you something. Going back to the importance of the Kenton school system, they had us not only playing at the assemblies and going to Alfred for jazz competitions, but just like playing at the assemblies when I was, younger and in John Brady's shadow, we played at the Boulevard Mall. By the way, it's a ghost town. I drove by there. I wanted to cry yesterday. I'm like, what
two
happened to
stores
our
open,
mall?
yeah.
But we would set up in the middle of the mall and we would play there, and we played different, and that was like my coming out party at 13, 14 years old, again playing in front of people. So that was critical. And if that program didn't exist at Kenmore East, I don't, who knows where I'd be right now, because it really exposed me to different crowds, whether it's people shopping at the Boulevard Mall or wherever we were. So, yeah.
And that you can trace that directly to
Yeah.
where you are now, too.
Well, 100%.
That's the best part about it.
Yeah, I never look back and go, when I played the first show with Jermaine Stewart in front of 18,000 people, that show wouldn't have happened if I didn't do this, and this first. It was a very important building block.
All right. Well, I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
So
for answering all these questions.
he's a real good drummer too. Keep your eyes on him.
I'm all right. Maybe
Yeah.
you should check out some of my bands. I don't know. Maybe.
Do it.
All right. Arc Band 2024 on Instagram. That's my current band. We'll see how long that one lasts. They're pretty good.
Thank you very much.